Good morning. Wow, people there already. Good morning, Caroline. Good morning, Lizzie. Good morning, Kerry. So, as always, if you haven't already said hello, please do so that I can be polite and say hello. Yeah, interesting topic today. Yes, we'll see where it takes us. I have some comments that I've collected from people during the week, so we'll see where we go. Welcome to Friday. Where are we? February already. Wow. Although I'm pretty glad to see the back of January, that's for sure. January did smell of poo, it did, yeah. Good morning to Diva Ellie. Hope the weather's nice there. It's cold, bit dreary, but yeah, it's February, so that's what you expect, really. So good morning, Janet. Good morning, Jane. Good morning, Pauline. Good morning, Kerry. Lots of lovely people here already. Thank you so much for joining me on a good old Friday morning. Let's have a look. Good morning, Heather. Good morning, Jay. That was the longest January in history, says Jane. Yes, it was. January is always a bit long anyway, but this January was really niggly. Very frustrating. Good morning, Emma. Yeah, Pete's working away. Eric is fast asleep under the blankets. You might be able to just see a pink blanket there. He's under that pile of blankets and sitting in his beanbag. Fast asleep. Good morning, Trudy. Good morning, Christine. Good morning, Helen. Good morning, Keith. Good morning, everyone. I must spend quite a considerable amount of the first part of the talk just saying hello to everyone, which is lovely.
Time to go.
Which is lovely. Good morning, Mary Ann. Oh, it's all good. So we'll give it a minute for people to find us. Good morning, Colin. And then we will dive straight in. Good morning, little Miss Nemo. Good morning, Xenia. Awful rainstorm in northern Germany and cold. Weather was so nice in London. Yeah, we haven't had a lot of rain recently after the torrential rain we had, which seemed to last forever. It is cold, but yeah, it's February. So good morning, Karen. Good morning, Wendy from Kentucky. You are up late or early or something like that. Good morning, Leslie. Good morning, Beck. Emma says, Eric always has the best ideas. Blankets and sleep. Good way to continue the day. That's pretty much most of his days. Yeah. He's not the world's most energetic dachshund. Sleeps most of the time, bless him. Or eats. I can relate to that. Good morning, Karen. So today's subject, and
start talking now.
I am going to start talking. Yeah, go and make the coffee. Several times, well, a number of occasions when I've been interviewed by people that don't necessarily follow the witchcraft path or a pagan path, and they will say to me, "So you're a white witch?" And I will say, there isn't necessarily that kind of title within my realm. I don't know any witches that actually call themselves a white witch, to be fair, but each their own. And then I've sort of had people saying about the Wiccan read. I saw a meme actually going around Facebook this week, and it was from quite a well-known witch. And it was a list of what witches do and what witches don't. And one of those said that witches do no harm. We follow the reed. And I thought, witches? No. Wiccans? Yes. Not all witches are Wiccan. Not all witches follow the reed. So that's kind of today is all about the black and white of it all, really, because people do use that term, white witch. Not so much perhaps black witch, but I guess if they're using the term white witch, then there's going to be the reverse of that as well. So it's really What do you think about witchcraft? I don't think witchcraft is white nor black. I'd go for grey, really. But that's what we're going to talk about this morning. I have some comments that people have made during the week. I have my own thoughts, obviously, but it'd be good to see what you guys think. So that's what we're talking about today. Jane says, calling us white witches is a bit like calling muggles saints. Yeah, that's a very good analogy. Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Angela. Good morning, Tess. You don't have to apologise for being late, Tess. We're just rambling. Keith, best to be grey witch. I don't abide the Wiccan Read. So let's start with that, shall we? My original training a gazillion years ago was in Wicca, mainly because that was the only thing that was available at the time, and I didn't know there were other things. But it gave me a good basic. I'm not, dissing it at all. It gave me a really good structure from which to step off and learn and follow other things. It also, gave me a lot of information. So that's a lot of knowledge. So the Wiccan Read is the short version, and it harm none, do what ye will. It is part of a line taken from the Wiccan Read. The full sentence actually reads, 8 words the Wiccan Read fulfill, and it harm none, do what ye will. But actually, that's just the last sentence of a whole script of stuff. I think people overuse and harm none. I see it written in a lot of places. I think people use it as an excuse to be rude, to be perfectly honest. It's a bit like, with all due respect, and then you say exactly what you think. Harm none seems to be, I'm going to say something really rude to you, but if I put and harm none on the end, it's all fine. And I have seen that done quite a lot. I used it a lot in spell work. I used to put and harm none at the end of it, every spell I did. Then I had a bit of a light bulb moment, and I thought, I'm hampering this. I'm stopping the spell from working. I'm stopping the energy from flowing because I'm putting a kind of blockage on the end of it. Because every single spell you work is manipulating energy. Every single spell you work is moving or transforming energy. So there will be your action and a reaction. Someone, somewhere along the way, is going to be harmed, changed, affected in some way. So even if you do consider yourself a white witch and all you do is work love and light spells the whole time, you're still manipulating energy. You are still putting stuff out there that is going to affect someone. So spell work, I think you need to take, not I think, you do. Spell work you need to take responsibility for, because you are changing energy, and someone somewhere along the way will be affected by that energy. A job interview is the one that I usually use. You've got a job interview. You work a spell to help you get that job. You get the job, hurrah. But there are other people that went for that interview that didn't get the job. So they have, in effect, been harmed because they didn't get the job. It's all got effect. Everything has effect. Particularly spell work, take responsibility for what you're putting out there. But I don't tend to use the and harm none now, because I think it stops the energy from working. Because ultimately, whatever spell you're working will harm someone. I hope that makes sense. Rambling. Let's go back and catch some of these. Kerry says definitely grey. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I also do not like the black for bad, since black is also a protective colour. Yes, it is my go-to colour for protection. It's phone not turned on, too silent. There's a bit of the Eurythmics going on there. It's interesting, isn't it? I don't know how far back it goes, the whole black and white thing, white being good, black being evil. I know in the old black and white Western films, the good cowboys used to wear white hats. The bad cowboys used to wear black hats to signify they're good and bad. Pete reliably informs me that in the original James Bond films, the baddies all drove black cars. It's interesting, isn't it, that it is that whole symbolism of black and white. Yes, what do you want?
I'm sorry, would you like a coffee?
I'll take, thank you.
I apologise for interrupting.
I think it's really interesting that people use those two colours. I would go more, I guess, with light and dark. But again, you have to have I don't think you can be totally light. You have to have an understanding and experience of the dark to appreciate the light. And you have to have an understanding of the light to appreciate the dark. I don't think it is just black and white, light and dark, good and bad. It doesn't work like that. Let's get some of these up. Beck would say I'm a rainbow witch if anyone asks what colour I am. Perfect. Good evening, Sephora. Emma, I was asked if I was a white witch 2 days ago. Must admit I cringed a bit and just agreed. He then asked if I made potions. So again, I said kind of. He laughed at me. It's interesting, isn't it? I'm lucky enough not to have experienced any people being nasty or horrible when they find out I'm a witch. Most people, if they don't understand it, will not think it's real. They think it's a whole Disney thing. Yeah, I get asked if I'm a white witch. Sometimes I say yes because it seems to make people feel more comfortable if they don't understand the whole pathway. I tend to use the word pagan first rather than witch, just to break the ice. The second question I get asked a lot is, do you turn people into toads? Yawn, yawn. Haven't heard that one before. Karen, green witch seems to be an understood and acceptable term. Yeah, green witch is a pathway, but it is about nature, and I would associate green witch a bit with hedge witch, a bit with kitchen witch. Green witch is about being eco-friendly and about following the natural pathway. But I think a lot of witches do that. We do that anyway. We do that generally. I think it's a bit different to the black and white scenario. Yeah, lots of people saying do no harm but taking no bleep. Absolutely. And I think that's where actually the read has been misunderstood, that whole, or misinterpreted, or maybe it has sort of been watered down over the time. I don't know what the reasoning is, but the unharmed none doesn't mean that you can't protect yourself. It's not that you can't do anything. You are still allowed to protect your family, your friends, your loved ones. You are still allowed to put up defenses, put up protection, bind and banish. That's totally acceptable under the unharmed none. And I think some people may kind of get that a bit confused. I think the original intent of it has been lost for some people. Lizzie, definitely object to fluffy bunny as a term for someone who practices. I have seen and heard that on occasion. Heather, everything you do has a reaction. Yep, like ripples, which may be seen by others as negative. Like getting a job means others didn't get it. Yeah, it is. It's everything that you put out there has cause and effect. It is dropping that pebble in the pond. There are ripples. Exactly, Bet. Newton's law, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. Balance is everywhere. Balance is an interesting one too. I like balance. I work with the feminine and masculine energies. I work with the light, I work with the dark. I like to walk down the middle of it. So I am working with balance. And we're probably all looking for balance within our work, home lives. It's one of those kind of elusive sometimes goals to reach. But it doesn't necessarily have to be exact balance. If being slightly more to one side or the other works for you, then it's all well and good. Everyone is an individual. Everyone's an individual human being, but every witch, every pagan walks a slightly different path to the next person. So it's got to work for you. So balance is a bit subjective. It might be equal balance. It might be slightly weighted on one side more than the other. It has to work for you. Jane, the last bit of the read sounds a bit like a codicil. Yes, it does. That was mentioned in the Poirot I was watching yesterday, actually. Anyway, Xenia, exactly. It's about knowing about action and reaction. That's the key word, Xenia, being responsible for it. As a witch, as a pagan, as a magical practitioner, whatever you put out there, claim it. You've got to be responsible for it. Keith, can't have darkness without light, and light without the darkness. It is, you've got to have both, or an understanding of both to make it work. Lizzie, energy is neutral. How you use it is what alters it. Yeah, we manipulate the energy to our own will. So it is the practitioner that decides whether it is black, white, blue, purple, pink, green, or a combination of all of them. It is taking responsibility for what you put out there. It's us as the magical practitioner that decides what pathway that energy is going to be. Jane, if our gain is someone else's loss, then perhaps snooze you lose needs to be shoehorned into the read. I think it is very much, you have got to work. You can't just, I say this to people about spell work. I'm using the job analogy again. If you want a new job, you can't just light a candle and work some magic to get a new job. You've got to look in the job seekers column. You've got to sign up to an agency for job applications. You've got to do that mundane footwork to back up that spell. Spells can help. They can help boost it. They can help support it. They can help move the energy on. But you've also got to do the work as well. You've got to put the effort in. Karen, how do you feel about protecting someone by doing a binding on someone else? I have done bindings. I will say I understand curses, I understand hexes. I have knowledge of both from a witchcraft point of view. I've also studied it from a hoodoo magical practice point of view, and we teach about curses and hexes within the Kitchen Witchcraft School because knowledge is power. I don't, as a general rule, curse or hex anybody. I haven't felt the need to. I'm not saying I wouldn't ever, but it's not an area that I particularly feel the need to do. Oh, look, latte, thank you.
Gingerbread latte.
Yum, thank you. But I have done bindings, and I've done bindings to protect my children from bullying. And I have done bindings to protect myself from one or two particularly vicious, spiteful, nasty people. Binding is about protection. It does not harm the other person from a physical point of view, but it protects you and stops that person from harming you or your loved ones or your friends, whoever you've worked for. But working a binding is a personal choice. You have to decide whether you want to work that type of magic. And again, be responsible for it. It's not going to work for everyone, but I would do that if I'm feeling threatened or if my family's being threatened. I absolutely would and have done bindings. Caroline, totally agree with you. I do spells now, but very seldom. I do work spells. I love working with candle magic in particular, and I think spells are incredibly useful to work with. But most of them do need to be backed up with some mundane stuff. And I would actually say, if you have a problem or issue or something you want, go the mundane hard work route first. That's just how I think. Good morning, Christine. Kerry, thorn in my side, a bit like worrying about the harm none thing. That's my ringtone. Coffee, black or white? Oh, latte. With as much milk and caramel syrup in it as you can possibly fit in the cup. There has to be balance in anything. Again, balance, yes, good. How that balance equates, whether it is a 50-50, is entirely up to each person, I think. Xenia, our whole existence may harm other beings. Oh, we're an infestation on this planet, let's be honest. We have to eat. We occupy a space someone else can't, like going to a job interview without magic, doing the best you can and getting the job because of you being brilliant makes others miss out too. Yeah. And people won't feel bad about this either. Oh, yeah, we are, just by living on this planet, we're doing damage because we're humans. Colin, without the dark, there can be no light. Absolutely. And vice versa. Caroline, I realized that changing the energy, adding things, removing things, prayers, etc., they are all changing energy. That is exactly what magic and spell work is. You are manipulating energy. You are changing things. You are tweaking with the things. You are making things happen. You need to be responsible for that. Charlie, we like labels and putting things in boxes. Oh, don't we? Simplification, black and white, maybe. It gives us a sense of security, part of identifying, assessing a situation. But isn't life mostly grey areas? Yep, and yep. We do, don't we? I think we like labels. And I think the label white witch is something that makes others feel more comfortable that don't understand paganism or witchcraft or any of those areas. Interestingly, if you say to someone that's not knowledgeable about what we do, if you say druid, they seem quite comfortable. If you say witch, it freaks them out. I don't know why. I have no idea why. Good morning, Maharet. Christine, you cannot go through life being happy with everything that happens and people who anger you. It's natural to have a dark side along with a light white side. Definitely great. Yeah. Life's messy and complicated, and let's look at January, for example. January was poop.
It smelled like poo, that was it.
It did. We had so many issues and problems and all sorts of rubbish. And some of that was caused by other people not doing what they were supposed to do, or not having done what they're, or not stepping up to take responsibility. So you're going to get angry and fed up and frustrated. I haven't resorted to casting anything dark against them because, it's like, Angela, if asked, I say I'm a green witch, which is a nice title. It is a pathway to walk. But is it good or bad? Is it light or dark? Which is the whole black and white thing. Beck, I tell people that at Witchfest we take our wigs off and scratch our baldy heads. Yeah, Roald Dahl, bless him. Keith, ask for a lock of their hair, puts most muggles off. Muggles is an interesting one too, isn't it? I have heard people being offended by using the term muggles as well. Obviously, it's you're not a muggle, you're a pagan, you just don't know it.
Oh, okay.
I think muggles is it's a Harry Potter thing, isn't it? Caroline Moore Green Witch. Yeah, it is. It is a pathway, as I am. If you press me, I'm a kitchen witch. But that doesn't necessarily denote whether I am good or bad, light or dark. Jane, we can't turn people into toads. If they are toads, they'll find out sooner or later. The great Sir Terry Pratchett writes about that in one of his books. The witch is asked if she turns people into toads, and she says no, she doesn't turn them into a toad. She makes them think they're a toad. Think about it. Leslie, I'm more of a so mote it be than a harm none. So mote it be is quite a good way to finish a spell because it's kind of an ending, isn't it? I actually take that and I make it Star Trek, and I do a Jean-Luc Picard. So at the end of my spells, I quite often say, make it so. Because that's essentially what so motive is. It's make it happen, basically. Hi, Corrigan. Emma, I've got a flag by my door which says the witch is in. And I find it starts conversations with delivery people. I also have a beware of the witch next to my door too. All good fun sometimes. Oh, we've got to laugh, haven't we? You have got to have a sense of humour. Good morning, Sue. Good morning, Maria. Jane, Benny Hill had a good little read. Do unto others, then run. Or he would not be politically correct in this day and age, would he? Pauline, grey is both the absence and presence of light. I like that description. Walk in the middle and you meet the best people. If anybody asks, I will say I am grey, and I walk that line between the light and the dark. I would interpret do what you will as free will, the choice between taking responsibility and acting a morally correct way or not. And it harm none is my commandment. And it works, but under the understanding that you are still allowed to protect yourself, protect your family, and on the understanding that whatever you put out there, you're changing energy. So it is going to affect someone. But it is about taking responsibility. You're right. You have to take responsibility for whatever you put out there. Lizzie, I briefly went to a book club and I was asked what I read. I said I was pretty eclectic. Bronte sisters, pagan, etc. Host raised her hands and exclaimed, Satanist. I didn't go back. Do you know, a big part of this is lack of knowledge, isn't it? It is lack of knowledge. There are Satanists. But then if you think back to more traditional witchcraft, the witches then worked with old Horny, a horned god. And quite often in all the old writings, spells and things do include bringing in the devil, because it was folklore, it was tradition, it was what happened then. But Satanist is a pathway. But it is probably a very misunderstood pathway. And it, again, lack of knowledge. If people don't know the meaning of paganism, modern paganism, that's exactly where they go, straight away to the devil, to Satan. One of those things, Xenia, if you just mind your business and someone else harasses or bullies you, you would take mundane actions to protect yourself too. So magic actions are acceptable too. It's them invading and disturbing your space. The example that I like to give is our daughter, when she was much, much younger at school, was bullied. The first thing we did was go to the school and talk to the head teacher. We put things into place to make sure it didn't happen. The school were brilliant. They put things into place to make sure that it didn't continue. We put magic into place by doing a binding and by giving our daughter a little protective pouch to carry with her. So the first steps were mundane. The first steps were practical ones, backed up with magic. Jane, doing a spell for a job gives you the motivation to do the legwork. Well, hopefully. Very, very rarely could you do a spell for a new job and then have the job land in your lap without you actually doing nothing. That's life. Life doesn't happen like that. Hannah, it's all about perspective, I think. People have so many different views on what is black and white, that nothing could ever be either. It is personal perspective as well, isn't it? We're all different, we're all unique, we're all individual. So we do have different ways of looking at things. Glorious coffee. It's a gingerbread latte. It's yummy. Yum. Charlie, I have mixed feelings about labels. I regularly pull the White Witch card, but I love black and green, and nature are my favourite. Can I be a green multicoloured glitter witch who doesn't like labels? Actually, I think this is part of it, isn't it? This is about being able to call yourself exactly what you want to. And if you want to be a green multicoloured glitter witch, I'm not going to argue with you.
You couldn't say it very easily.
No, I'd have to practice it a little bit. It's quite a lot of words. You might want to shorten it a little bit. But this comes into it, I think, doesn't it? People like little boxes, little labels to put things in. I mean, I don't even like the word eclectic, actually. I prefer to call myself a miscellaneous witch. More difficult to spell. Because I take bits and pieces of all sorts. My original training was in Wicca. I did all the 3 degrees. I gained my High Priestess title. But I've done Avalon training. I've done Hedge Witch training. I've done Shield Maiden training. I've done or number of workshops and courses on all different things. And I take the bits that I like. If I'm pressed, I'll call myself a kitchen witch, as I say, but I take on a lot of other stuff. I work with folk magic. I work with traditional witchcraft, all kind of mixed together. Miscellaneous witch. Or as someone said at one of the witch fests, I'm a cocktail witch. Karen, it is bullying I want to protect my grandson from. I've been there, done that, Karen, with my children. Absolutely. Bindings work incredibly well. It's the mundane route first, talk to the school, talk to the teachers. But yes, binding will protect from the person that's causing harm. It will not physically harm that person. Obviously, you're manipulating energy again. Obviously, there is a certain amount of free will that you're interfering with, but you are doing it from a protective point of view. As long as you accept and take responsibility for that, bindings work really well. And I would bring in a little bit of protection as well. You know, both their children carried little pouches with them to school with the odd crystal and herb in for protection.
A little happy sack.
A happy sack. That's not a nice comment.
Yes.
Moving swiftly onwards. Angela, a seed neither fears light nor darkness, but uses both to grow. Machona Delueo. Wise words. Very wise words. Emma, I've done a binding on someone who robbed a shop I was very familiar with, and the owner of said shop. Stolen goods were returned, but I don't know what happened to that person. Hopefully the universe dealt with them in a very suitable way, Emma. Kerry, I have no problem with sticking someone in the freezer. Yes, we're all going to get bigger freezers because you can only fit so many bodies in the freezer. If they're causing problems with myself or family. Don't think I'm doing anything bad to them, just preventing them from causing harm. Yes, this is about protection for yourself. Putting their names on paper and putting it in the freezer stops them from harming you. You are still manipulating energy. You are still, to a certain degree, affecting that person, but not in what would be considered a harmful way, I don't think. Emma, the shop owner is also a witch. So she did her workings too. The power. Hi, Vanessa. Xenia, you wrote what I was thinking about certain people being toads already. Yeah. Keith, another term I don't like is baby witches. It's a trendy one, isn't it? It's one that seems to have popped up recently. And I don't really have a problem with it if they are happy to call themselves that. And I have heard people new to the craft calling themselves baby witches. I don't have a problem if they're comfortable with that, then I don't have a problem with it. But it is another label, isn't it? It is one of those labels. Jane, sometimes when people ask us what our label is, it's best to tell them what they want to hear and to leave it at that. It doesn't change what we actually are. Yes, I think you have to decide on the situation, don't you? As I say, if someone I don't know is asking me about it, then I will lead with the pagan word. I won't start out with the witch word. And yeah, if someone that doesn't understand, doesn't know, and they say, oh, a white witch, then I will often just say, yeah, kind of, because it makes people feel more at ease. And it doesn't really have any effect on me. Sue, being a druid does not stop you wanting to poke someone in the eye with a sharp stick. No, that's because we're all humans. Xenia, because witches are being portrayed as the baddies in films and fairy tales, and druid are being portrayed as good wise ones protecting the king and such. Annoying. I guess it goes back in history as well. Druids have been written about historically in a good light, and witches, wise men, wise women on the edge of the village, doing whatever they could as a living, whether it was curing or cursing. Yeah, they've been given a bit of a bad rap, really, haven't they?
Is that because they were generally male or female back in the day?
Druids, I think, were probably male historically,
so,
but we don't really know.
So that would explain why people think that way generally, I think, because the blokes were, back in those days, weren't they?
There were wise men as well as wise women, cunning folk. They lived, the ones that lived on the edge of the villages in their little cottage, and people would go to them for herbal remedies and, cursing the neighbour's cow and stuff. They were male or female.
Luckily, our neighbour doesn't have a cow.
We don't know. Our neighbours wouldn't be able to fear a cow in their gardens. Corrigan, it's impossible. I'm sorry. It's impossible to harm none, no matter how much we don't want to hurt others. It's inevitable. However, I do look to do no harm if I can, whether it's in witchcraft or any other aspect of life. Yeah, it is impossible to harm none if you are working magic, because you are manipulating energy. Just saying. Karen, as Dan the Bard said in one of his songs, I'm green and grey. Yeah. He's a very nice chap, Dave. Very nice chap. Xenia, exactly as we have seen, we all have met each other and we are awesome. Well, we are, obviously. Charlie, I do value labels and feel a witch, but have repeated experience of people using labels to justify bad behaviour. I'm a fill in the blank, so can treat people badly. I wear mine lightly. It's interesting, the label, and particularly the W one, the witch. It actually took me quite a long time before I felt comfortable calling myself a witch. I felt a little bit like an imposter when I was first learning, but that's a whole other chat, actually. Imposter witch syndrome. I'll mark that one down. I'm proud of being a witch. It is it's a label I'm proud to have. But humans, they like to justify doing bad things, whatever religion, faith, or whatever they are or follow. Leslie, I generally cast when I'm calm and balanced. I avoid doing any magic when I'm in a dark place. Very, very wise. I feel it was darken the spell, so I always check my state of mind. Very wise, Leslie. Yes, absolutely. Pauline, I have a sign above my coat rack which says, all the best stories have witches in them. They do. Absolutely. Good morning, Kerry. Vanessa, green and grey. Didn't someone write yes to the Dan the Bard song? Tess, labels seem very restrictive. Yes, they can be. I agree that shades of grey seem to be a good balance, although I would say that shades of rainbow colours are much more attractive. We're all more than one thing and have aspects of yin and yang, light and dark, good and bad in all of us. We do. Not that we're all bad. However, sometimes our responses, reactions can be negative, but the light in us keeps us from taking negativity too far. I think we're back to taking responsibility, aren't we? We are all human beings who aren't one or the other. There's both of everything, whether that is light and dark, good and bad, male and female, whatever it might be, yin and yang, all of the opposites. It's how we work with it. So it's about taking responsibility. Karen, wouldn't a Satanist have to be Christian rather than pagan? No, I don't know a huge amount about it. But they do. It is a particular pathway where they work with the devil. So it is a pathway on its own rather than being linked to any other religion, as far as I'm aware. But I think it's probably more detailed and complicated than we think it is. If it's not, I worship Satan, that's it, I'm dark. There's a lot more to it than that. Keith, I always think the horned god is Pan or Sununnos. The horned god covers quite a few different deities. But if you look back into traditional witchcraft and the old texts and spells and folklore, then the horned god was a title given to the devil in some instances. It's just a male energy, isn't it? As far as I can see. Anyway, What upsets me is the willful lack of knowledge from the outsiders. According to one friend, I have an interesting take on religion. What the blue brick dust does that mean? Or I like the phrase blue brick dust. Yeah, a lack of knowledge is an awful lot to do with it, isn't it? It is lack of knowledge from people that don't understand about paganism or witchcraft or any of the pathways under that umbrella. Do we share the knowledge? Do we explain? Sometimes it can be really difficult to get your side across. It depends how open the people are. Sephora, I guess I'm green more than kitchen at the moment. Health requires a lack of cake. That's boo. Thanks, menopause. Oh, let's not even go there. Kerry, I was asked if I danced naked around a fire on a full moon. Yeah. Told them it's a bit tricky dancing around the central heating radiator. I usually answer with, we're in Britain. It's far too cold for those kind of shenanigans. But it was something that was done more often back in the early days of Wicca. It was a thing. It was done. There are still groups that do that now. Not so much. Again, personal choice. But that's probably television and media and things that like to highlight that part of it. Xenia, I recall that some Satanists say that stupidity is a satanic sin. Good one. Yeah, because people acting rude because of lack of knowledge actually does harm people. Absolutely. Jane, I used to do that a lot till I ended up with more transgressors than dinners in my freezer. Perhaps we need separate freezers. Just for all of this freezer spells. They are Lizzie. Lizzie is a GMG witch. I like it. Sephora. I think I would just stick with witch and leave a little mystery as to what type should anyone be foolish enough to ask. Do you know, I think as well that is, witch covers so many things. I tend to add pagan witch because not all witches follow a religious pathway. Paganism is my religious side of it. So I tend to say pagan witch. It doesn't need to be any more fancier than witch if you don't want it to be. You don't have to be specific. Jane says pick and mix witch. But that's more about our pathways. That's more about the ways that we follow kitchen witch, because I work a lot with magical food and herbs, and hedge witch because I connect with hedge riding and the other world that way. That's not about white and black and dark and light. It's just a different label. Xenia, you are a hoarding witch. You collect and hoard knowledge and skills. I like that. And books. I do hoard quite a lot of books. Emma, I explained my path to my friend. She doesn't believe in any of it, but she's always interested in what I do. She sees me as just me. She's never called me any kind of witch. She loves me as I am. And that's how it should be, Emma. Absolutely. Karen, if you're looking for binding information, there is some on my blog about binding and banishing. Hannah, there are people who do think in a black and white way due to personality disorders. And I think if witchcraft was constantly promoted in a good light, then we would eventually get away from anyone thinking badly of the word witch. I think we do have to reclaim the word witch, but I think it does have its dark sides. Everything has its dark sides, but yes, it could definitely do with some more positive PR, that's for sure. Again, lack of knowledge, isn't it? Corrigan, love a cocktail witch. Yes. Often describe myself as an art witch because art is how I experience a lot of my magic. But I also use herbs and cooking and divination and all sorts. Yep, I think most of us do. Most of us do. We do. We take what works for us. Christine, when my granddaughter was being bullied at school, I got her to draw an image of the person bullying her, told her to add spots and goofy teeth. We then put the picture under a rug and I got her to jump on the picture. She loved that and had a good giggle about it. Turns out that she stopped bullying her. Perfect magic. Perfect magic. Little Miss Nemo, wouldn't it be great if we could do a binding spell for our planet? I think it needs more than that. I think it needs a whole lot more help than that, but it's a good start. Lizzie, my granddaughter has had a problem with a boy in her class since she was 4. School has done everything. It's continued into secondary school. I now feel I need to step in. Suggestions, please. Binding, Lizzie. So there is information on binding in my Spells and Charms book, but there's also information on my blog about bindings. Yes, absolutely. I would have no problems with doing that whatsoever. So tell everyone you're on a different spiritual path. That usually shuts them up. It's lack of knowledge, isn't it? Jane, if the so-called advisors in high places were replaced with druids, our country might get back on an even keel, or we might just all revert to pagan time and sit around drinking mead and nothing will get done. Which doesn't sound too bad at all, really, but the practicalities of it, maybe not so much. I think it's about balance again, isn't it? We could do with a few to balance it out. Absolutely. Pete makes a very convincing cow. Don't encourage him.
It would have been so funny if the doorbell had rung and I did that. That would have been funny.
Do not encourage him.
There's a cow outside.
Caroline, Hollywood and TV have a lot to answer for. For example, Merlin TV series Morgana was portrayed as bad. It's interesting as well, isn't it? Because Merlin is from the idea that we get today is from the Geoffrey Monmouth stories. Morgana was part fairy, so there would have been a darker side to her. But again, it is, dark TV, evil characters sells. That's just how it is.
She wore a pretty frock in the film, though.
Yes, they all wear pretty frocks in the film.
Yeah.
Keith, in the Oxford Dictionary, it says witch is a cunning woman. Doesn't mention men at all. I think that is because witch is generally seen as a feminine, isn't it? Obviously, it's not. But I think it is generally seen. But there were definitely cunning men as well as cunning women. Absolutely. Historic records of them. Emma, the wise woman. 2 things you must know about the wise woman. 1, she is a woman, and secondly,
she is wise.
She is wise. Blackadder. Yeah. Pete beat you to it.
Yeah. What a good show.
Beck, my sister-in-law tells Mum and I we can't spell. Use a W instead of a B. Rude. Hannah, Satanism can be either theistic, where they believe Satan is a god, or atheistic, is about being non-conformist and free-spirited. Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than that whole idea that Satan is evil and that's what Satanists are. It's far more complicated than that. And again, that is about lack of knowledge, I think. Hi, Leanne. Colin's all for the mead. Yeah, me too. Keith, cancelled your book. Don't even get me started on that. Talk about bindings. Cancelled your book on Amazon and ordered it from the book depository. It's on its way. If you are in the UK and you're after a copy of Witch for every season, cancel your order with Amazon. I have no idea what's happening. No one can give me any answers. No one seems concerned about it or looking into it or anything. It is very frustrating. However, Book Depository have been superstars and they have stock and they get it sent out within a couple of days. So there you go.
Put a link to your book page. Karen's
got a cow. Oh, what? A cow coo clock. It moves and a cow pops out instead of a cuckoo. Excellent. That's brilliant. I didn't know there was such a thing. Corrigan. I always resonate more with the witching stories, even if she's evil. Yeah, me too. Christine, I watched Loose Women yesterday while eating my lunch. They couldn't resist asking Bernice of Emmerdale about her Wicca. Is that a thing? I don't watch any of the soaps. It was short and sweet, but she's a lovely PR person for paganism. Yay, go Bernice. That's what we need more of. Angela, Romans tried to wipe the Druids out as Caesar didn't like the fact that they practiced human sacrifice. Double standards, methinks, yeah. on that note, I'm not sure the country would be any better off. The Romans did wipe out a lot of the Druids, most of the Druids. It was one of those. Caesar didn't like, I think, perhaps not so much the human sacrifice side of it. And there are records that they did on occasion. I think it was perhaps more the control thing, that people looked up to the Druids and they followed their teachings. I suspect it was more to do with that, really. But we'll never really know, will we? Because, you know, history is quite blurry. Lizzie, Pete, can you listening? Can you share the link to Rachel's book that covers bindings, please? That's the Spells and Charms one, and the link to the blog if possible. They're all via my website. Rachel,
hang on.
There.
Spells and Charms.
Yeah, if you go to that website and if you look at the books, it's the Spells and Charms one. But if you go to that website and click on the blog link and do a search for bindings, you'll find it. Thank you. Sue, Caesar didn't catch this, Druid. You're not quite that old, Sue. I know that. It's interesting. The whole black and white, light and dark thing is very interesting. And we had some brilliant thoughts put out on. I put the question out on the Facebook Kitchen Witch Facebook group. Grey seems to have been a running theme throughout, and the fact about balance. You can't have one without the other. You have to understand the light to understand the dark, and vice versa.
I don't understand that light.
Yeah. And I think as well, it's the misunderstanding of what a witch is from those that don't understand, and the portrayal in Hollywood and media that witches are evil.
You've got 100 years of advertising to.
Oh yeah, you've got a lot of catching up to get rid of that. Yeah. It is about taking responsibility, and it is about understanding that every single energy that you put out there affects something or someone. So it is about taking responsibility for it, and doing what you feel comfortable with. You have to be comfortable with it. There are root workers that practice hoodoo. They curse, they hex, have no problem with doing it because they accept responsibility for it. People that curse and hex, bad people, murderers, rapists, do they deserve it? Is the witch comfortable with sending that curse and hex out there to that type of person? Only you can make a decision to put that kind of energy out there. It has to sit comfortably with you, and you have to take responsibility for it. There's no right or wrong here, as far as I'm concerned. You need to take responsibility for it. Although I don't follow the read necessarily, I think it is good advice. I have part of it on one of my tattoos. I think it's a reminder to take responsibility for yourself. I think, as I say, it's been very misunderstood and very misquoted over the years. I think it's a good reminder to check yourself, but it's also that you can protect yourself, you can protect your family. And I think it is about living the best and being the best person that you can be. But we all make mistakes. We all get cross. We all get angry. But it is, again, I come back to responsibility each time. I think you've got to take responsibility for what you put out there. You really have to. Christine, in summer I'm a rainbow witch too. In winter I'm a black or grey with a hint of navy. I do like colour. Colour magic's a whole other thing as well. It affects our moods and our energies and our emotions. Absolutely. Keith says, I think there are more pagans than Christians now, so I think it's growing so big. It's probably not quite that clear cut, but I know that the paganism is growing, absolutely. Hannah's decided I'm a bardic witch. I like it. Call yourself whatever you want. Sephora, I always say to my kids, when I know better, I will do better. Wise words. Colin likes to be a warm witch. But yeah, that's how we all would at the moment. Someone also mentioned on the Facebook group that it's about intent, and I think that's important as well. If you take energy and you are manipulating it into a spell, one person could take the energy and be a positive with it, and someone else could take the energy and send it out for negative purpose. So it is your responsibility, is the intent of the person that is putting that energy out there. But as with spells, they have a habit of doing what they want anyway. The universe is a total git and likes to interfere. The universe knows what we need, and it isn't necessarily what we want. So that comes into play as well. But it is, much as I don't particularly follow the threefold, what you put out there comes back 3 times, I think it is the energy that you put out there is a reflection of you. And if you do good stuff, then you get good stuff back. It is checks and balances, really. Catherine, Druids are the masculine version of Fae Masters. Certainly they have returned to balance, karmic darkness, high priests. We live beyond duality once ascended within the body. No dark, light, just love. Druids are female as well. So there's a bit of a hiccup to that one. I know plenty of female druids. There is dark and light. It is human nature. But let's hope that it heads that way. It would be nice, wouldn't it? Emma, I'm having Eric message. I see the blanket movement. Yeah, he's turned around completely. Put it back to us. Jane, I've recently encountered gatekeeping and very restrictive dogma within a Wiccan setting. How should we deal with this? I think, when I first started on this pathway, I thought it's going to be brilliant because pagans love nature. They love everyone. They are happy people. They are free-spirited. There's not going to be any arguments. There's going to be no negative people. Oh boy, was I ever a shock. Because ultimately, we're human beings, and human beings have dark sides to their nature. I also think there is perhaps within pagan groups, and I use pagan because that covers everything under the umbrella, whether it's a druid group, a witchcraft group, a Wiccan group, there will always be people there that want the power. There will always be people there that enjoy the power.
Too much.
Too much. Yeah, that's the key. Within any group, you need someone to be in charge, because otherwise things don't get done and things don't move forward. But in some groups, there is often a person that wants to take that too far and likes the power, likes the glory. I was ousted myself from a group a number of years ago because they didn't like the fact that I was doing the books and the talks and but I was ousted from a spiritual group by people that were supposed to be very nice pagans. So I have experienced it myself. I think it's about finding the right group that fits for you. If you feel uncomfortable, and if no one's doing anything about it, if the majority seem to be happy that someone is doing that gatekeeping and that general rubbish, you have to make a decision whether to put up with it or leave. It is one of those things. It happens, and it's the whole power thing, I think. It's rubbish, but human nature, yeah. Sephora, is there a spell to stop your brain wandering to unwanted memories even though you want to forget? Difficult one, because memories have a habit of resurfacing. That would come under shadow work. You need to do some shadow work to find out how to accept and acknowledge those memories. But shadow work is quite tough. We do teach it in one of the lessons further on in Kitchen Witchcraft. A lot of it is about acceptance. It's rubbish, again, though. Little Miss Nemo, the old adage, have a care what you wish for it may come true, springs to mind. Oh, yeah, I say quite often, be careful what you wish for. It's not always what you want. Kerry, why do people think that warlocks are male witches? I don't know, that's a lack of knowledge, isn't it? Warlock, translated, means oathbreaker, so they were never particularly a positive thing. But I am aware that some male witches these days do take on the title warlock because they prefer it to being called a witch. So I think it is a bit of misinformation and a bit of perhaps reclaiming and changing the meaning of the word. Colin, ask 12 pagans a question, you get 13 answers. Oh, absolutely. We all have our own beliefs. We do. Ego is not amigo. No, that's very true. Very true. Xenia, as you said, what you put out, you get back. But if you try to be the best version, there can still be people who don't like you and are being rude, no matter how many bridges you build. Oh, yes. Sometimes you have to tear down those bridges and walk away to protect yourself. Yes, yes, and yes. And yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. People will dislike you because they heard something about you. Gossip, Chinese whispers. There are people that don't like you because they're jealous of what you do. There are people that won't like you just because of what you wear or what you look like. Or it's human nature. It is completely rubbish, but it is sadly human nature. You
can't believe everything you hear, can you?
No, you can't, but people do. Jane, decanting memories into a journal is a great help. Thank you. Very good suggestion, Jane. It's releasing it onto the paper, isn't it? Mary Ann, love discussion today. Have been struggling with labels in general. This was really helpful. If you want to call yourself a witch, call yourself a witch. If you want to call yourself a purple, green, sky blue, pink witch, do it. If you want to call yourself a spiritual person, do. If you want to, it's up to you what you call yourself. But it is interesting. We talked a couple of weeks ago about what a witch is. And there's all different sorts of meanings and all different sorts of suggestions for that too. I think you have to be comfortable with a label if you want one, but it's got to be what you want to call yourself, and don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. Charlie, my friend has to go in a psychiatric hospital and is unwell. Part of me feels I should be doing something, healing chant spell for her, but I'm aware she's very, very fragile, delicate, and maybe. And we get into the ethics of healing here. If you are doing healing for someone else, you need to ask their permission first. If she is in that kind of situation, it may be worth waiting to see how she gets on. You could do a healing spell and send it up to the universe to be used in the best way possible. Kerry, thank you for doing these lives. Highlight of my week and wouldn't miss one for the work. Oh, bless you. It's like sitting with you guys in a cafe and having coffee and cake. It's fantastic. Christine, even fashion models with perfect everything are talked about in horrible ways. Oh, yeah, we do. We have this thing, don't we, that we like to knock anybody and everybody. Vanessa.
Especially if they're successful.
Especially if they're successful. Yes, we don't like that at all, do we? Vanessa, when people don't like you, it's their issue, not yours. Yep, nailed it. Jane, got a dash to make a cake for my first girly gathering of spiritual seekers this evening. Been longing to use the witchy room for its proper purpose. Thank you. Oh, have fun. Absolutely have fun. Keith, a witch is a witch is a witch. Warlocks don't come into it. They are always oathbreaker in my book. And that's how it always used to be. But I know there are people, I'm going to sneeze. I know there are excuse me, there are people that are reclaiming, the title warlock. So that's, I think, a case of them having to understand that people won't necessarily understand.
Did you just sneeze on Eric?
I did. Emma calls myself the Plumpty Witch. I like that. Sue, I'm with Sue, I'm with you. Don't care if people like me or not anymore. Sue, we love you. But no, I think the older you get, the less you worry about it, really, isn't it? One of those things. You learn, I think. You learn from experience. So there you go. I don't think we've got an answer to that, really. White or black or dark or light, or I think it's your own personal choice, your own personal pathway. What you call yourself is your own personal choice. Don't let the buggers get you down. Thank you to everyone. I have a course starting next week with the College of Psychic Studies. I've got several courses running with them this year. We have various online bits and pieces for students. Check the forum, check the student only group. We've got a couple of events in February for the students. Myself and the girls will be at the Wandering Witches in April. 15th of April. Thank you. Cowplain, thank you.
I'll put links up.
I'm doing a talk at the Wild Witchcraft Conference.
25th
of March.
Yeah, that's up. The links up there too.
Yeah, the links are all there. He's very well trained. Yes, Eric has woken up. It's time to go. We're going to say goodbye. You're going to come and say goodbye?
Go on.
Come on then.
Still going.
Can't be bothered. That's his tail. You're going to come up here, yeah? No, he says it's warm and comfortable on there. So there you go. So thank you everyone for joining me as always. You guys absolutely rock. And that's Eric yawning. If you've got any questions, thoughts, queries, myself and the Kitchen Witch gang are always here. So do message us if you think we can help with something. And that's about it, really. So have a fun weekend. And I will catch up with everyone next week. Thanks, everyone.